friends, and welcome to my channel, Correct My English with Laila M. You may or may not know that I'm on a mission to complete all of the discussion topics on the ESL discussion website for English learners. So for today's topic, I chose the letter E. So the topic will be environmental problems. Let me know how you did down in the comments and if you would have answered any of the questions differently. Let's go! Question 1. What do you think when you hear the words environmental problems? I'm thinking about visible pollution, the pollution that you can see. That can be in the form of low air quality and in the form of polluted water bodies like rivers, oceans. I'm also thinking about emissions that I can smell, especially when I'm in traffic and I can smell fumes. So I'm also thinking about that as an environmental problem. Question 2. Do you add to the environmental problems in your daily life? Yes, I think I do. I drive, but not every day, and not because I'm trying to save the environment. It's because I work from home. When I do drive, I try to use the eco mode on my car, but I know I'm still emitting a little bit. I fly a few times a year, and I know planes are the biggest emitters, or they've been labeled as the biggest emitters for some reason. So I see that I'm definitely polluting in that way. I'm not sure how it works, but like planes that tend to emit less carbon or something like that are priced a little bit high, and I haven't personally bought that ticket. Maybe I'm irresponsible in that way. I shop online a lot, so I know that someone needs to drive to me and they have to wrap whatever I've bought with plastics usually. So I can see how I'm contributing to that problem, especially if that plastic is not managed in a very good way. I also don't separate garbage because I'm not required to. But recently I've been seeing the benefits of separating, especially the organic waste, because I don't have to throw out a 50-gallon trash bag just because I have organic waste in it and I don't want it to start smelling in my house. So I've personally decided that I'm going to separate, especially organic waste from other types of dry waste, and I've really been seeing the benefits, honestly. Question 3. What can you do every day to help the environment? First of all, I acknowledge that I do need to separate my garbage because this has a twofold effect. So first, I'm saving myself money because I don't have to constantly be changing these large garbage bags just because I have like some food that I put in there that I don't want to smell, and I have to constantly throw out these expensive recyclable bags out every single day. So I see that as a benefit to myself. I also think that I'm saving the people at the final destination of the garbage collection, and it takes them less time to sort out the garbage, like what goes in for recycling and what doesn't. And I like this very much. I also think that I need to volunteer for beach cleanups because yes, we can litter our streets, but when it comes to the ocean and rivers, fish cannot do this for themselves. So I believe it's really incumbent for us humans to try to save the environment in the ways that are very common sense ways, because nobody else will do it if we don't. I've also seen like a lot of videos of the Pacific garbage patch. A lot of people will be very familiar with that area. And I've been seeing a lot of companies being privately funded to actually clean that up. So I really, really laud those efforts. I also think I should continually educate myself on the new trends in recycling and trying to save money and the environment at the same time. I think this is really, really good practice. And especially I live in the desert. We need to use air conditioning here. And the more I can learn about trends to save money while at the same time remaining comfortable and in cool, comfortable temperatures and the comfort of my own house, I think that is a wonderful thing. I also think that I need to be conscious about the companies that I buy from. I know some companies are flaunting rules and environmental protection laws, but, as a person who's buying, I've not really been able to put myself in that situation to really, really sift through the list of companies that I need to buy from. I think I need to be conscious in that way, and I have not been, so I see that as something that I can do to help save the environment. Question 4. Will the problems get worse or will they slowly disappear? I strongly believe that humans are fully capable of solving their own problems. With regards to what the news is broadcasting, I think there's a lot of good reporting, but there's also a lot of sensationalism as well. So, for example, the reporting from 10 years ago of cities that were severely polluted, I don't see them trying to go back to see how the situation has changed. And if not really keenly following the news, we still have the image of, for example, China 10 years ago as opposed to China today, or some city, you name it. I'm not specifically speaking about China, but that's an example of how sensationalism works. So they put out this story and oh my God, everything is just coming to an end. And they don't go back to see how the situation has been reversed or something like that. So we're perpetually in this loop of hearing about how bad we're having it and so on and so forth. But I know a lot of people care about the environment, and governments are very active on this front, especially when it comes to regulating companies and how they do business and how they manage their own waste as well. I think this is a really, really good thing. Yes, like I mentioned before, the Pacific garbage patch is being cleaned by privately funded organizations. And I think this is so amazing. This is a good example of how humans just come together to solve their own problems. So I think we are literally on the right track, but that's just my opinion. Question 5. What is the biggest environmental problem and why do you think so? Well, for me, what I see as the biggest environmental problem are the problems with our environment that I can see. So, for example, the problem with air pollution. I can see that some places have very low air quality, so I think that's a problem. Water pollution, when I'm seeing plastic bottles or garbage on the streets as well, I'm thinking that as a big problem as well. When I'm driving and I can smell emission, I see that as a problem. And it becomes a problem because I think it's infringing on my right to breathe fresh air and clean air, and also humanity's ability to access food. For example, the people that eat fish, you want to eat fish that is healthy and has not ingested a lot of toxicity, because that transfers to us, so we don't want to be doing that. And if we're releasing toxic sludge and expecting to fish, then that's really crazy, because with time there's not going to be anything to eat, especially when it comes to the fish. These things that we're doing are kind of impacting the way we're supposed to live a high quality of life. And I know a lot of people who have money can escape to their countryside home to enjoy fresh air, but a lot of the people can't. And I don't see it as a good thing when you need to afford fresh air. I think that is just completely unfair. And especially even for the fish, why do they have to eat toxic waste? That's not their food. So I believe that this is something that as humanity we can come together, because that's a common sense issue that we can really solve very, very quickly. We don't have to have a reduced quality of life just because we're living in a city that is not serving us. And we can talk about money problems and different kind of jobs paying X amount of money and, comfortability that's brought about by having money or earning well. But when it comes to breathing fresh air and we have to buy that as well, I definitely see that as problematic. Also, with regards to the life under the water, those creatures cannot do anything to save themselves. So it's our responsibility as humans to stop contaminating the water bodies, to clean them up, to allow for that life to thrive. We all depend on each other, and I think that's a good way that we can do that. And if we're not trying to protect those sea creatures, we're literally just doing a disservice to ourselves. Question 6. Which do you think is worse, litter in the countryside or coral bleaching? I had to Google coral bleaching, and I've learned that it's the expulsion of symbiotic algae that lives on the coral tissues. And this happens because of adverse climatic conditions. For example, the pH levels of the water have risen to a level that is not conducive for the algae to thrive. I also know that a lot of toxic waste in the water is responsible for a lot of these things. So the algae naturally dies off. And in the case of where we used to see coral reefs that were really brightly and brilliantly colored, we now see bone white coral. Having said that, I believe that when we litter in the countryside, we can easily go back and pick up that garbage. We can impose a regulation of how people dispose of their waste and impose fines if we have to. But with regards to coral bleaching, I think it's going to take a bigger effort to recover the algae and make it thrive as it once did. Question 7. How eco-friendly is your country? Well, I believe that my country is quite eco-friendly. I live in the middle of the desert, and here it's very easy to stay away from nature and not interfere. Humans have managed to keep to themselves, and the desert has succeeded to a large extent to keep to itself. So I imagine whatever desert creatures live in the sand, they're able to thrive there. We use air conditioning here because it's very, very hot. But I know that a lot of people are very interested in installing greener units of air conditioning that are more efficient, cost less money, and are good for the environment. So I know that's a really, really big effort, and I've done it myself. We treat our water. I believe that the water that runs in our taps, especially in the bathroom and sinks, the water is recycled, treated, and brought back into our taps. I think that's a good thing, and it's not wasteful. So maybe that's eco-friendly. I know there are land reclamation efforts going on sometimes. I don't know how active that is, but I know it's highly regulated by the governments, and usually when it comes to this front, I think governments have a really good sense of how to go about this. So I would put us at an 8 out of. Question 8. What causes climate change and how can we reverse it? Well, I think there's a big debate here because scientists believe it's human action that's causing climate change, but I know there are other schools of thought. I believe in science, so I would go with human actions, especially when we're cutting down trees and a lot of winds from far and beyond are able to reach us because we don't have that natural forest cover to protect ourselves and break the wind. Some farmers want to divert the natural flow of the river to serve like a irrigation purpose in their farms, and they cause like rivers to dry up downstream. So this is definitely human action as well. And I think some of these things can be reversed by common sense legislation. I think the governments should really get on this one because these are the areas where huge industries are at work. And I think the only thing that can combat their power and influence are governments, and especially governments that are really at the front of environmental protections. I think we're seeing a lot of changes and good things happening there. Policies are being formulated, enforced, and fines imposed as well. I know I keep going back to fines, but I think these things can't just be let to be consequence free. If you are polluting the environment, you should pay. If people pay, it acts as a deterrent, and if that's how we need to operate, it's better than that. With regards to education, and especially for the general public, and how we need to go about climate change and what we need to learn and what are the emerging trends, I think education goes a long way as well. Question 9. What problems do you know of about water? With regards to water, I think there's one big problem, which is contamination. I know this is a big thing, and water can be contaminated very easily, and that's an issue that needs to be at the forefront, especially when it comes to drinking water. I know a lot of people complain about like the hard water that comes into the homes, and it tends to like damage the pipes and the faucets and whatnot. So maybe that's a water problem. I know like when it gets a bit dry, there's an increased salt content in the water. So I would say that that kind of water is contaminated, I guess, especially when we're talking about larger water bodies whose ecosystems have been lost because of human actions. Like we see like wetlands are disappearing, riverbanks are completely drying out, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a big problem with water. So I think the biggest one I can think of is just contamination. Question 10. Will we humans kill the earth one day? Well, I think based on our discussion, I think it's easy to see why my answer is no. I believe that it is impossible for us as humans to destroy or completely destroy our habitat. I know we have pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable. We've really pushed the limits and we're almost at the breaking point. But I know like one thing that humans succeed at is doing the things that benefit them. And I think it's coming to a point where we're seeing the need to protect our environment. And a lot of people are doing that and they're doing good things. Hell, even I'm separating my garbage and I don't have to. So I believe that when humanity comes together, many good things are possible. And I'm very excited about that. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know how I did down in the comments and if you would have answered any of the questions differently. Until next time, bye!